There is no enemy more patient than weakness. It does not rush you. It does not challenge you openly. It does not strike in the heat of battle or in the clash of steel. Weakness waits quietly, invisibly, in the narrow space between intention and action, in the moment just before you move, in the hesitation that feels harmless, in the doubt that flickers for less than a second but lasts long enough to end a life. That is where warriors fall. Not because they lacked skill, not because they lacked training, but because they paused to walk the path of. Bushido was never about peace. It was never about comfort or balance or inner calm in the way modern minds like to imagine it. Bushido was about tempering, about pressure, about fire. Fire does not purify what it never touches, and a spirit that has never been tested will collapse under the weight of its own storms. An undisciplined mind is not weak because it lacks power. It is weak because it cannot command that power when it matters. This truth was understood by Miyamoto Musashi, born in 1584. During Japan's age of endless war, Musashi did not wait for strength to find him. He did not wait for permission. He did not wait for the perfect conditions. While others chased recognition, status, and security, he withdrew into solitude, silence, hardship, with nothing but sword and ink day after day, stroke after stroke. He forged something rare, unity between man and blade. Strength was not something Musashi performed. It was something he embodied. Weeks before his death in 1645, he wrote his final teaching, the Docket. In it, he carved a line that would echo far beyond his time. Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. Why? Because the self is noise. The self begs for comfort. It demands praise. It seeks escape when pressure rises. But the world does not negotiate. The river does not slow down for your excuses. The mountain does not lean toward you to ease your fear. Reality does not care how you feel, only how you act. You either rise to meet it, or you are buried beneath it. This is not a story of glory. This is a reckoning. It is the story of a young samurai who seemed perfect in every way, yet discovered that his discipline was built on sand. And it is the story of a wandering Ronin who revealed to him the difference between appearing strong and being strong. This is the beginning of the 10 disciplines, not habits. Weapons. They cut through confusion. They burn away softness. They strip the soul until only what is solid remains unyielding, sharp, immovable. The samurai who looked perfect to Soka province. Spring 1612. The dueling circle was silent as Takeshi of the Hayashi clan stepped forward. 300 witnesses watched closely. Nobles, soldiers, masters, peers. This moment was the culmination of a lifetime. Takeshi was 22, summers old. Born into a noble samurai family, trained since the age of 7. 15 years of daily discipline. Master of 3 sword schools. Perfect form, flawless technique. He was his sensei's finest student. Across from him stood his opponent. Wandering Ronin. No family. No school. No reputation. His clothes were worn, his bokken chipped and wooden, his posture unremarkable. Nothing about him suggested danger. This duel should have lasted seconds. It ended in 3 breaths. The signal was given. Takeshi raised his sword into perfect stance, exactly as he had practiced thousands of times. His form was immaculate, balanced, controlled, ready. The Ronin did nothing. He stood with his blade lowered, eyes half closed, as if unaware of the moment. Takeshi waited. No attack. He waited for movement. Nothing. His mind began to race. Why isn't he moving? Is this a trap? Should I strike first? But his sensei's voice echoed in his mind. Never strike first unless the Ronin's blade flashes. A single strike, not to kill, only to disarm. That single moment of hesitation was enough. Tshi single quote S sword flew from his hands. Before he even registered movement. 1 strike, 3 breaths. Defeat. The crowd fell silent. Then came the whispers. The heir of the Hayashi clan defeated by a nameless Ronin. Takeshi stood frozen, Not from the loss itself, but from something far worse. In the moment that mattered most, 15 years of training had vanished. His body knew the forms. His mind knew the rules. But under pressure, his spirit seized. Perfect technique had meant nothing, because hesitation is death. That night, unable to bear the weight of shame, Takeshi left Osaka. He did not look back. No destination. Only distance from the whispers, from his family's disappointment. From the identity he thought he was 3 days later. Deep in the mountains, he found a small shrine. And sitting there calm, unmoving, was the Ronin who had defeated him. Asterisk tried. Takeshi sat prepared to rise. And failed. The moment his muscles tensed, his mind intervened. Thoughts flooded in about posture, about balance, about doing it correctly. Before his body moved, he had already begun negotiating. Kensei's voice cut through him like steel. You're already thinking, which means you're already negotiating. Stand. Now. No thought. Takeshi tried again, and again, and again. Each time, the same invisible barrier appeared. A pause. A fraction of a second where the mind asked permission instead of issuing command. It took 30 attempts before something shifted. On the 30th, his body rose before his thoughts could interfere. Kensei nodded once. Tomorrow. Before dawn, you will wake yourself. No attendant. No drum. No signal. You will rise when the warrior within commands it. And you will stand without negotiation. Without thought. This, Kensei explained, was where discipline truly begins. Not in the grand gesture. Not in the dramatic sacrifice. But in the very first movement of the day. Master this moment, and everything else becomes possible. Fail it, and nothing you build will hold. The second discipline, move without emotion. Day 7. Mountain training grounds. For 6 days, Takeshi practiced waking without negotiation. It exhausted him more than sword forms ever had. Not because it strained the body, but because it stripped away comfort. Each morning was a confrontation with resistance, and each morning demanded obedience before reasoning. On the 7th day, Kensei handed him a bokken. Hold your stance, he said. Defend against my words. Takeshi frowned. Your words? Yes. Takeshi assumed his perfect stance. Balanced. Ready. Kense, I spoke calmly. Your family is ashamed of you. Nothing moved, yet something ignited. Your father regrets ever calling you his son. Takeshi's jaw tightened. Your sensei tells others you were his greatest failure. Heat surged through his chest. The dojo laughs at your name. Rage erupted. His grip tightened until his knuckles whitened. His stance shifted forward, aggressive, reactive, preparing to strike. Kensei lowered his own weapon. Stop. Takeshi froze, breathing hard. Do you see? Kensei said. Emotion controls you. You insulted my family. Takeshi snapped. No. Kensei replied evenly. I spoke words. You gave them power by reacting. He circled slowly. In a real duel, an opponent will insult you to provoke anger. Angry men fight recklessly. Reckless fighters die. This was the second discipline. Move without emotion. You do not need to feel like moving to move, Kensei said. You do not need to feel ready to act. The blade cuts not because it wants to, but because it must. Miyamoto Musashi faced men who wanted him dead dozens of times. He watched their rage sharpen their swings and dull their clarity. He did not swing hardest. He swung cleanest. Why? Because he was not there to win emotionally. He was there to win completely. Emotions are like clouds, Kensei continued. They swirl, expand, vanish. They carry motion but not direction. A storm in your chest is not a command. If your hand obeys emotion, you are no longer a warrior. You are a servant to chaos. Over the next 3 days, Kensei tested Takeshi relentlessly. Insults, provocations, sudden strikes. Each time, emotion surged, and each time, Takeshi learned not to suppress it but to observe it. Feel the rage. Acknowledge it. Do not act from it, act through it. The man who lashes out is already defeated, Kensei said. The man who hesitates because he fears his anger is already dead. But the man who can feel everything yet move independent of feeling becomes unstoppable. By the 10th day, Takeshi stood in calm while Kensei screamed insults inches from his face. The emotions still rose, but they no longer commanded his blade. Good, Kensei said. Now you are ready. The third discipline, train when you don't want Tomoth to. The morning of rain. The monsoon had arrived. Rain fell in sheets. Wind howled through the mountains. Cold bit through bone. Every breath fogged the air. T's high woke before Dorna's trained Dot, and every part of him resisted. Muscles ached from brutal training. His clothes were thin, the ground slick and unforgiving. A voice whispered in his mind, "One day of rest won't hurt. You've trained for weeks. Your body needs recovery." Even Kensei would understand. He almost stayed inside the shrine. Almost. Then he remembered the teaching. The training you do when you want to means nothing. The training you do when you don't want to. That builds the warrior. Takeshi stood, dressed, walked into the freezing rain. Kensei was already there. Soaked, silent, moving through sword forms as if the storm did not exist. He saw Takeshi, nodded once, said nothing. They trained for 3 hours. No shelter, no complaints, only movement. When they finally stopped, Kensei spoke. This is the third discipline. Train when you don't want to. Anyone can train when inspired. Anyone can act when it's convenient. But pressure never asks if you're ready. Musashi did not become invincible through comfort. He slept in caves, practiced cuts in rain, split his hands on wooden swords. No teacher, no audience, no permission. Only discipline, relentless and silent. There is no final exam for strength, Kensei said. Only today's task, done or not done. You came today when every part of you wanted comfort. That mattered more than any technique. The training is not the goal. The training is the path. Skip the training and you skip the way. Over the following weeks, Takeshi learned a brutal truth. Discipline in comfort is not discipline. It is routine. True discipline emerges only when quitting feels justified and you continue anyway. The result was immediate. With less to protect, less to maintain, and less to think about, Takeshi's mind began to clear. His movements became faster, not rushed but precise. His focus sharpened, no longer split between identity, possession, and expectation. What remained was simple awareness. And simplicity, Kensei taught him, is speed. But clarity alone was not enough. Now came the disciplines that forged the inner fortress. The fifth discipline, sit with the pain. Week 13. During sparring, Takeshi took a hard strike to the ribs. Not fatal but deep. The kind of pain that wraps around the breath, that pulses with every movement, that demands attention. His instinct was immediate. Stop. Rest. Seek relief. Sit, Kensei said. Takeshi looked up, confused. Do not move. Do not treat the pain. Just sit. This was the fifth discipline. Sit with the pain. Pain is not your enemy. Kensei said quietly. It is your invitation. Invitation to grow. To see clearly. To separate what is fleeting from what is real. Miyamoto Musashi was no stranger to pain. He did not run from it. He did not drown it. He did not distract himself from it. He carved it into ink. He turned suffering into form. He fought not only men but hunger, isolation, exhaustion, and loss. The man who cannot sit with his pain, Kensei said, will betray himself to escape it. He will fold. He will numb. He will run in circles and call it a journey. But the one who remains still becomes stone, not hardened in denial, but solid in understanding. Because he has faced the fire and lived, Takeshi sat for 2 hours. The pain screamed. His mind begged him to shift, to distract himself, to escape into thought. Every instinct demanded relief. But he stayed. And in that staying, something shifted. The pain did not disappear. But it no longer ruled him. It became sensation, information, not master. The sixth discipline, guard your focus, like a swordsman for. During meditation, Takeshi's mind wandered constantly back to Osaka, to his family, to the shame of defeat, to the imagined thoughts of others. Kensei struck the ground with his staff. Your attention is the front gate of your mind, he said. Leave it unguarded, and you will be conquered before you ever raise your sword. This was the sixth discipline. Guard your focus like a fortress. The undisciplined mind is scattered, pulled apart by sound, memory, fear, and fantasy. But the warrior does not give away his vision. Musashi wrote, "Perceive that which cannot be seen with the eye. You cannot do this while distracted. You cannot do this while replaying past defeats or rehearsing future fears. The sword must be held with two hands," Kensei said. So must your attention. No split grip. No partial presence. If you chase 10 birds, you catch none. If you split your mind, you split your power. Kensei trained Takeshi in single-pointed focus. One breath, one movement, one moment. When eating, only eating. When walking, only walking. When striking, only the strike. Each time, Takeshi protected his attention. The walls of the fortress thickened. And behind those walls, his power returned, not because he was doing more, but because he was leaking less. Disciplines 7 through 9, the inner fortress. 7th discipline, live without needing approval. Month 5, a group of traveling samurai passed through the mountains. They stopped to watch Takeshi train with Kensei. "Is that the Heihachi heir?" One laughed. "The one defeated by a nobody?" They mocked him openly. The old Takeshi would have reacted instantly, would have needed to prove himself, would have challenged them to restore honor. The new Takeshi did not stop training. After they left, Kensei spoke. "This is the 7th discipline, live without needing approval. The need to be seen is the enemy of inner strength. As long as you depend on others' respect, you are owned by those who offer it. You train in the shadows," Kensei said, "so that when the light finds you, you no longer need it." Musashi walked alone, not for show, not out of bitterness, but because he refused to bend his path just to walk beside those who did not understand it. Ask yourself, would you still train if no one ever knew? Would you still choose the right path if no honor followed it? If the answer is no, then you are still performing. Takeshi understood. For months, only Kensei had seen his effort. No praise, no recognition, and in that obscurity, he found something deeper than honor, purpose independent of approval. The 8th discipline, control all things in the evening. Kensei spoke again. Discipline is not something you switch on during training and leave behind at meals. This was the 8th discipline. Control eating. Control speaking. Control resting. The man who sharpens his sword but lets his tongue run wild is not disciplined, Kensei said. He is decorated. Before eating, ask, does this serve the path or escape? Before speaking, ask, does this sharpen clarity or waste breath? Even in rest, remain sovereign. Do not collapse into sleep like one fleeing battle. Enter rest with the same presence you enter combat. Takeshi learned to eat simply, speak rarely, sleep with structure. You can tell who a man truly is not by how he performs, but by how he eats when hungry, speaks when angered, and rests when exhausted. Discipline is not partial. It touches everything. The 9th discipline, accept death. Month 6, Kensei led Takeshi to the edge of a cliff. Below them, 100 feet of open air, ending in jagged rock. Stand at the edge. Takeshi stepped forward. Look down. His heart raced. This is the 9th discipline, Kensei said. Accept death daily. The man who fears death fears life itself. Because every hesitation, every excuse, every cowardly moment is a refusal to accept the one truth: no one escapes. Time is not guaranteed. Musashi wrote, think of death in the morning and in the evening, not to create fear but to destroy it. When death becomes familiar, you stop bargaining with time. You stop delaying action. You stop saying later. You act. Now. You were not promised tomorrow. You were not promised victory. You were not promised honor. You were promised one thing only. You will die. The only question is this: when that moment comes, will your throat be filled with regret or your spine filled with steel? Kensei's voice carried weight beyond the cliff, beyond the moment, beyond even Takeshi himself. Across history, warriors had stood at this same edge, facing impermanence, learning that acceptance of death is what grants freedom in life. Not morbid. Not dark, fearless. Because when death is accepted, lesser fears dissolve. From that day on, Takeshi woke each morning with a single acknowledgement, "This may be my last dawn. Let it be the right one." And with that acceptance, procrastination vanished. Hesitation disappeared. Every action became complete. The 10th discipline. Hold the line no matter what. Month 7. The ultimate. Test. Everything Kensei had taught converged into a single moment. 7 bandits descended on the mountain. Shrine. Hungry. Armed. Testing. The lone Ronin and his student. 7 against 2. Overwhelming odds. Takeshi felt it instantly, every fiber of his being screamed to run, to negotiate, to find another way out. But Kensei's voice cut through the noise. "This is why we trained. Hold the line." This was the 10th discipline. Hold the line no matter what. Not when it's easy, not when victory is guaranteed. Hold it when everything screams to flee, when no one would blame you for retreating, because what you do when it costs the most reveals what you truly are. Musashi held the line when outnumbered. When wood met steel, when death circled him again and again. He did not break. He did not run. He moved forward or stood still, but never backward. The bandits attacked. And something profound happened. Takeshi's training took over. Every discipline activated at once. Asterisk. He rose without negotiation. Moved instantly. No hesitation. Fear rose but did not command him. Emotion surged but did not steer him. His body responded automatically, forged through countless repetitions. No excess, no wasted movement, pure efficiency. He sat with pain, took a cut, and did not flinch. His focus narrowed. Only what mattered existed. No approval needed. He fought for the path itself. Total control. Pain was eaten like rice. No words, only the blade spoke. Death accepted. Movement became free. He held the line, not a single step backward. When the dust settled, 3 bandits lay unconscious, for had fled. Takeshi and Kensei stood exactly where they had begun. The line had held. Kensei looked at Takeshi, something close to pride in his eyes. "Now you understand," he said. "The 10 disciplines are not separate. They are one blade folded 10 times, used together. They create something that cannot be broken by circumstance. 1 year later, the student becomes the teacher. Spring 1613. 1 year since Osaka. Takeshi stood at the same mountain shrine where his training had begun, but he was no longer the same man. A young samurai appeared on the path 19 summers at most. Lost, defeated, hollow. Takeshi recognized the look immediately. The shame of failure, the weight of not being enough, despite every advantage. "Are you the one they call Kensei's student?" the young man asked. "I was," Takeshi replied. "Now I am simply Takeshi. I heard you were defeated in a duel, yet you're still here, still training." "How?" "Because defeat is not failure," Takeshi said. "Quitting is." He looked at the young samurai. "Did you come here to quit or to learn?" The young man knelt. "Teach me." Takeshi glanced toward the shade where Kensei sat quietly watching. The old Ronin nodded. "What is your name?" "Hiroaki." "Hiroaki," Takeshi said. "We begin at dawn, and it begins with the hardest discipline of all, rising without negotiation. The first battle every warrior must win happens before he ever touches his sword." As Takeshi spoke, he realized something. These were no longer Musashi's words. No longer Kensei's. No longer borrowed wisdom. They were truth, timeless, forged again and again by warriors discovering the same pattern. The student becomes the teacher, the blade becomes the hand. The discipline becomes the warrior. The final wisdom. That evening, Kensei called Takeshi aside. "Tomorrow, I leave?" Takeshi turned sharply. "Why?" "Because my work here is complete. You came as a performer. You leave as a warrior. There's still so much I don't know. There always will be," Kensei said. "That's not the point. The question is, do you need me anymore?" Takeshi understood. He didn't. The 10 disciplines lived in him now, not as knowledge but as bone, as breath, as reflex. "They are not secrets," Kensei said. They are written in Musashi's texts for anyone to read. But access is not mastery. Application is, you applied them especially when unwanted. That is what forged you into someone who cannot be broken by circumstance. Kensei placed a hand on Takeshi's shoulder. This teaching passes on, from Musashi to me, from me to you, and from you to whoever comes next. His voice deepened, stretching beyond the moment. For those who hear this call, whose discipline is beautiful, but hollow walk this path. Not to learn theory, but to be forged. The world does not need performers. It needs warriors. Takeshi bowed deeply. Where will you go to find the next one? He asked. Kense. I smiled. The one who has everything except what matters. Kensei walked into the mountains and disappeared. No farewell. No ceremony. No final instruction. Takeshi stood alone at the shrine. But he was not truly alone, because the disciplines lived in him now. The path stretched forward, silent, endless, and somewhere unseen, a young samurai who did not yet know his fate was already walking toward this same place. The cycle would continue. It always would. The path that never ends. 10 years later, Takeshi was 30. His name had spread throughout the provinces, not through boasting, not through banners or declarations, but through inevitability. Undefeated, 17 duels in 10 years, 17 victories, not through superior technique. Not through brilliance or flair, through unbreakable discipline. Yet the victories meant little to him. What mattered was the path. The daily practice. The repetition no one saw. The disciplines lived moment by moment. Kensei had promised him this to become a warrior whose foundation could not be shaken because it was not built on outcomes. It was built on what could not be taken away. Daily, unwanted, unbreakable practice. Young samurai began to arrive, drawn not by reputation but by something quieter, something solid. Takeshi taught them the same 10 disciplines. Not as philosophy, not as theory. As survival. 1. Rise without negotiation. 2. Move without emotion. 3. Train when you don't want to. 4. Eliminate the unnecessary. 5. Sit with the pain. 6. Guard your focus like a fortress. 7. Live without needing approval. 8. Control all things. 9. Accept death daily. 10. Hold the line no matter what. These were not Takeshi's teachings. They were Kensei's. They were Musashi's. They were every master who ever walked the warrior's path. 10 blades, forged not to impress but to endure. The true differentiation. Evening, alone in meditation, Takeshi reflected. From the humiliated samurai who froze in 3 breaths, to the man who could face 7 opponents without